Hello, everyone. This is Joe Boston with the Dallas Real Estate Investment Group and Real Estate for Life podcast. Here today to talk to you about the fix and flip timeline and how to be realistic when you're starting your project. A lot of times, what people think is that it's just day for day, and it's actually not. There's a lot of pre planning that goes into a fix and flip. When you get really good at it, then obviously that could cut your timeline down, and also the scope of work that you need to get done can also be shortened because you probably have a shorter lead time because you'll be prepared. But when you're starting, I want to talk to you about a high level timeline that you can actually use. So what you'll see before me actually is from uh, a presentation that was provided to me by uh, Finishing Touches. They're actually a really good rehabbing company. The gentleman's name is Blake Johnson, which I've known him for years, but it was just a really good overview of what your expectations should be when you are actually starting a project. And so I kind of want to just go through a couple of these slides so that you'll understand what we're talking about when it's time to start your project and in terms of your timeline. So obviously the days before you close, we're assuming you've picked a house that you're going to buy. Then you make an offer, it's accepted. Then you're going to notify your team. So this is what's crucial. So if you don't have any of your team in place, you could actually delay your project being completed even a month to 2 months further, just because you're still trying to organize and pick contractors to complete your work. So there's other aspects to this process as well, the inspection, lender insurance, but you have to do your numbers, vet that out, work those out, and then uh, do your walkthroughs with your contractors, and then they have to have a schedule to start the work. And so we'll kind of talk about how that looks. But when you start talking about closing, the first 5 days of closing, you have your closing day, then it gets funded. So the day it gets funded, really and truly, before that day, you should have had all of your contractors already at the property developing a scope of work. So how we do it is once we've identified a property that we want to purchase and we have it under contract, all of our contractors are out there immediately to assess the scope of work. And so the way I do it is by the time that I fund, pretty much we're ready to go. And I try to have the days scheduled, but most people don't operate like that. If you're not doing it full time or you don't have your own crews and you hire someone, this is what it could look like. So you have your closing day on day one. The second day, it's funded. So then you start to contact your contractor to schedule pre construction walks and walkthroughs. So then you get all your utilities and uh, items placed into your name so you can conduct and do the work. Then there's the fourth day, there's a pre construction walkthrough with a project manager. Now, if you've hired someone, you're going to obviously walk through the property or project with them to determine the scope of work, right? The high level, they'll ferret out if they have to move walls and actually look at the best type of design for your project. And so you can come to a conclusion for both of you to start to move forward. On day 5, the revisions are made and the final scope of work is returned for your approval, right? So after you've done that walkthrough. So day 6, uh, it sets everything in motion. You sign off on all the changes that you might have determined with your project manager. and then you're ready to go. So then you're going to develop a contract, schedules for your draws, because you're going to obviously have a loan that you've obtained, and then you're going to pay that project manager and their crews throughout the project. We call that a draw, and you'll have a draw schedule so that you can monitor completion of work if it's on time, and then also uh, what should be paid out, and if you're on budget, right? So there's a lot of details that go into that. Day 8, the project manager walks the job with the crew, and then you have your expectation dates set, and you want to be there with them if you can, or at least on the phone. Now we have technology, so you can actually be on the phone with them and see everyone. So day 9, that's when your inspections, things that you couldn't see when you got the house, are inspected. Things that are on the walls, your plumbing and electrical, HVAC. And then the 10th day, you can pretty much start. But that's if you're pretty aggressive, and if it's not a substantial. If it's a full gut rehab, it might take a little bit longer. And in addition to that, if you don't have, and if you're doing this yourself and you don't have a turnkey uh, project manager that has all of the trades in place and you're doing it yourself, you could double this timeline. So it could take like 20 days. So remember, if you get a hard money lender, typically they like you to be done in 6 months. Okay. And you want to be done in 6 months because of the amount of interest you pay. So you can see, if you don't have an aggressive schedule to get your contractors hired on time, and then to determine the scope of work, you could already be a month in it and then just have 5 months to complete the work. And that might sound like a long time, but believe me, with delays and permits and delays due to weather, there's so many things that can happen, variables that can come into play. It can get expensive if you haven't planned. So as you can see the schedule, and you make the offer, and then it's accepted. It's viewed by contractors. The bid is generated by a contractor. The inspection comes back with all the items you might need to take care of, and then bid revisions. You could actually not even begin to start the walkthroughs until the middle of the month. And so that's why it's imperative that you really take a hard look at your calendar. I find that a lot of investors that don't do a lot of flips can be behind substantially. They don't wonder why they're a month in and nothing's been done. You'll see a lot of houses that are sitting. Well, it's because the pre-planning hasn't been done. In addition to that, the materials are another part of the process flow. So let me give you an example. If you have to replace all your windows, and they're not standard sized windows, like we call a 3050, a 3 foot by 5 foot windows. They sell those all day long at Home Depot. Well, let's say it's a little smaller, a little bit larger, and it's not in stock at a Home Depot. Well, if it's a custom window, it could take anywhere from 4 weeks to 8 weeks to get the windows in. And that's just one item on your material list. So if you have that on your material list, and you have several things that might not be able to arrive at the warehouse, or you have access to, that could delay your project as well. So you can see all this pre-planning also includes materials, not just labor. So they have to have the tools to actually install and work on. So that's important as well. I see a lot of people waiting to the last minute, once they know their scope of work and what they need, ordering items. So those things need to be put in place in front. So that could delay your project. So you could see that if you're not pre-planning, you could actually not start your project until a month out, and you're just sitting there. And so remember, you're paying interest only for the most part, but that's a whole month of interest just sitting there, just going and being paid out. So you don't want to wait that long. So you want to do a lot of pre-planning. If you need help, that's one of the things we have really good subject matter experts at our group, which is the Dallas Real Estate Investment Group, to assist you with that. So how to finish on time? One of the things that you want to pay attention to is the scope of work and make sure it's thorough. So this means experience, like we always talk about, is put first things first and last things last, right? So you don't want to be doing things out of order. And that's when you want to work with someone so that you're doing the right things in order. Uh, for example, you don't want to paint and then you have to put your floors down, or put your floors down and paint, so there's different orders. Um, if you're painting a room that's already been completed, and then there's rooms that need flooring, that could change your mix and timing. So you need to have all of those things put in place and in order, you know, from beginning to end. So we like to say, there's the phases of project management, right? So there's an initiation, which you're figuring out what you need to do in your project. Then there's your planning, right? So that's when you're going to walk through that with your project manager, and then get your scope of work and get the processes started. Then there's the execution when they're doing the repairs, and then there's the monitoring and controlling, as you all know. So you're making sure you're on time and in budget, and then there's the closing out of the project. So all those phases you need to be cognizant of so that you come in on time. Communication is of the essence, because there could be different changes that need to be put in place based on the area permits, requirements for the inspectors, something that's unforeseen that might require a change order, or something you want to change. You might have a design that just didn't work out. You might need to change it during the process, but that's going to add more time to your project. And then in addition to that, um, all of the different aesthetics, that could change, or you might change your mind. You want to make sure that if you're going to do that, that if it's putting you in a time crunch, it's really tough for you, can make your project be delayed. So remember, it's not your personal house. It's a rehab project, not a remodeling project. But you want to make sure it looks and does the fit, form, and function of the neighborhood. Uh, so keep it as neutral as possible, so the buyer that comes in could actually modify it to their taste. And it's a project, so don't get personally attached. Just make sure it's a really good product when you're done. But what I wanted to emphasize is that project management is about a lot of different variables, but it's also taking your timeline and then working backwards so that you can make sure that everything that needs to be done is done on time, on budget, and within quality, uh, you know, quality assessments from your contractors to you to your lenders, because a lot of times your lender is also going to go and check the status of your work, especially when you're having to pay out on draws. They're going to want to make sure those uh, jobs have been done and the work's been done. So, wanted to make sure you were aware of that, because if you don't plan, you could be a month to 2 months into your project before anything has been done. And I have seen that. And, there's been horror stories, and people are just paying for a property that's sitting. So, want to make sure you understood that. So, uh, the 10 crucial days that we talk about is working with your project manager, or you working to manage your subs and your trades people, so that you can actually start, almost right after you close. So thanks for listening, and we will share more tips and tricks uh, on different aspects of real estate investing, whether it be fix and flip, owner finance, subject to new construction. You'll be able to find different information from us at the Dallas Real Estate Investment Group and the Real Estate for Life podcast. Till next time, I will talk to you later.